Hi, let me explain the 10th problem of income from house property. Mr. Babu has 5 houses, the municipal valuation per annum of which are 20,000, 16,000, 12,000, 8,000, and rupees 12,000 respectively. These are the municipal values of 5 houses. The first house 20,000, second house 16,000, third house 12,000 and fourth house 8,000 and fifth house 12,000. Next point, he lives in the first house. So in the first house, the SSC used for residential purpose. So the first house is used by SSC for own residence. So therefore you can consider this as a right now as self-occupied property. In the second house, he runs his business. In second house, he runs his business. The second house is used by SSC for own business. If a house property used for own business or own profession, then it won't consider under income from house property. It should be considered as a business income, not house property income. So no assessment of second house because it is not a business house property. It is a business property used for own business. He used this property for own business, so therefore it comes under his business income, not under his income from house property. Next point, the other 3 houses are let out rupees 800, 700 and 1200 per month respectively. The remaining 3 houses were let out for rupees 800, 700 and 1200 respectively. Next point, 1/3 portion of the third house is also used by him for his residential purpose. The 1/3 part of third house The 1/3 part of the third house is used by SSC for residential purpose. The first house is fully used for residential, so that is self-occupied. Again in third house, 1/3 part of the third house is also used for residential purpose. So therefore, 1/3 of third house is considered as a self-occupied property. The 1/3 of third house is considered as a self-occupied property and it should be assessed like self-occupied property. And the rent of rupees 800 per month was received for remaining 2/3 part. In third house, 1/3 is used as a residential house and remaining 2/3 is used as let out property. So 1/3 is considered as a self-occupied property and 2/3 of third house is considered as a let out property. So totally in third house there is a 2 division, 2 house properties. Next one, a loan of rupees 3 lakh was taken at 10% per annum for the construction of fifth house which began on 1st June 2016 and completed on 31st January 2019. So that is a point in case. Then for the previous year, the interest paid by him amounted to rupees 20,000. So first point is the SSC borrowed the loan for the construction of fifth house. The SSC borrowed the loan for the construction of the fifth house and the loan amount was rupees 3 lakh and rate of interest 10%. The date of loan borrowed was on 2016, which began on 2016, and we have to assume that the loan also borrowed on same date on 1st June 2016. It has been given that for the construction of fifth house which began on 1st June 2016. So we have to consider that loan was also borrowed on same date and the construction completed on 31st January 2019. So these informations are required for the calculation of interest on loan in case of fifth house. Loan amount, rate of interest, the date on which loan borrowed and the date on which the construction completed. And another point, for the previous year, the interest paid by him amounted to rupees 20,000 and that has to be considered again under interest on loan. Interest on loan for previous year. So that is here it is directly given 20,000 interest on loan for the previous year. First, there are two parts under interest on loan. First part is a 1/5 of the pre-construction period, whereas second part is a interest on loan in previous year. So first part we have to calculate 1/5 of pre-construction period interest, and the second part interest on loan in previous year was rupees 20,000. Next point, the fifth house was vacant for 2 months. Now this fifth house vacant for 2 months. So there is a vacancy in case of fifth house. So while you are calculating rent received, you have to calculate it for the let out duration only for less than 12 months. Maybe you will get 10 months. 10 months is a let out period for fifth house. Later I will explain it, that concept. Next, municipal taxes assessed and paid at 10% of the municipal valuation. The municipal tax paid at 10%, 10% of municipal value of each property. So that is in case of municipal tax. You have to calculate it on 10% of municipal value. Then during the year, he recovered unrealized rent of rupees 5,000 which was claimed as deduction in 2015-16. The recovery of unrealized rent of preceding previous years is considered as an income for the current year. Unrealized rent of the previous year is considered as expenses which has to be considered while calculating rent received. This is the unrealized rent of preceding previous year which has been recovered in the previous year. So therefore this one, this 5,000 recovery, it is clearly specified recovered. So it is considered as income. So income of which received in the form of unrealized rent which is related to the year 2015-16, and it is considered as income for the current year or for the present previous year, and it should be added to the grand total of income from house property. After calculation of income of all the 5 properties, then you have to consider this recovery of unrealized rent of preceding previous year. So in this problem, the SSC uses 5 houses, or SSC is the owner of 5 houses. The first house is used by him for residential, so it is self-occupied. Second house is used for own business, and third house, 1/3 part is self-occupied and 2/3 part of this third house is a let-out property, and fourth house is a let-out property, and fifth house is also let-out property. Let me solve the one by one. The first house, house 1, the first house is used by him for residential purpose. He lives in the first house, so it is a self-occupied property. So we will assess it as per the provision of self-occupied property. It starts from a net annual value. Always the self-occupied property provision starts from a net annual value. It's nil. Next, less deduction under section 24. Interest on loan. No loan details here related to first house, so therefore it is considered as a nil. So either there is no loss, no income in case of first house. So it is a nil in case of first house, no income, no loss, so you can consider it as a nil. And then we go for the next house, second house. The second house is used by him for own business. In the second house, SSC runs his business. So second house is a business property for own business. The second house, the property which used for own business. So therefore, whenever the house property used for own business or own profession, it should be assessed under business income or professional income, not under income from house property. When you can consider a property under the head income from house property, one point is SSC must be the owner, and another point either it should be used for residential purpose or it should be used as let out properties. So therefore here in case of the second house, The property is used for own business, so therefore it is not accessible under the head income from house property. So therefore here I have written as NA. NA means not applicable, means it not comes under this particular head. So that because it used for own business. So now I am going to assess the third house. In third house, so 1/3 part is a let out and 2/3 part is a self-occupied property. The partially used as a let out property and partially used as a self-occupied property. Now I will assess the first 2/3 part, which is used as a let out property. Later I will assess 1/3 part of the third house. And the first 2/3 part of the third house, and it is a let out property, so we will assess it as per the provision of a let out property. The first one, municipal value, it's 12,000. It's a 12,000 for the full house. So 12,000 into 2 by 3 for 2/3 part, so 8,000. Next, parent is not given, no standard rent, so therefore expected rental value is 8,000. Next, rent received. Rent received is 800. Rent for the third house, it is 800. 800 is the rent of the third house. 800 into 12 months, no vacancy, so therefore rent received is for 12 months 9,600. 9,600 is the total rent received. Next is the gross annual value. Expected rental value or rent received, whichever is the highest, is a gross annual value. So because here no vacancy and no unrealized rent, so therefore you have to compare expected rental value with the rent received, and whichever is the highest is the gross annual value. Next is the municipal tax. It has been given, it is a 10% of municipal tax paid, 10% of municipal valuation. The municipal value of 2/3 part, the full house part is a 12,000. 2/3 part municipal value is rupees 8,000. So 8,000 into 10%, so 800 rupees. Why 8,000? 8,000 is the 2/3 part municipal value. Municipal value into 10%. Municipal tax paid was 10% of the municipal value. So 8,000 into 10%, so 800. Next is net annual value, 9,600 minus 800, you will get 8,800 as a net annual value. Next, deduction under section 24. Two deduction. First one is a standard deduction, second one is the interest on loan. Standard deduction 30% on net annual value, so 8,800 net annual value into 30%, so it is 2,640. No loan details in case of third house, so therefore it is considered as a nil. So the total rent received, or total income of the third house is of 6,160. That is for 2/3 part. 2/3 part income of the third house is a 6,160. Now I am going to assess the second part of the third house, that is a 1/3 part. 1/3 is a self-occupied property. SSC used 1/3 part for the self-residential or residential house. So we will assess it as per the provision of a self-occupied property. It starts with the net annual value. So net annual value is a nil. And next deduction under section 24. Only one deduction, that is interest on loan. So no loan details provided here. So therefore interest on loan is considered as a nil. And next third, there is no income, no loss in case of a third house. No income, no loss in case of third house. So therefore it is considered as a nil. So till third house I have assessed in this class, the part 1, and part 2 part I will assess it in another class. Thank you very much.